And so is it Oddworld Episode New and Tasty?
No, well, we're calling it Oddworld New and Tasty.
Oddworld New and Tasty.
But it's really the remake of not HD, the remake from the ground up, ground zero, readdressed that game as the original with lots of new bells and whistles and dynamics. Did you have a chance to play?
Yeah, so I managed to play it, and the thing that strikes me most about it is it's the original game that looks better. Like, there are a lot of games. So, for example, a recent example was on 360, Flashback. They did a remake of Flashback, and it lost something in the translation from going from Mega Drive and Amiga and all that sort of thing onto modern consoles. Yeah. Whereas New and Tasty certainly feels legit. It feels like you translated Abe's Odyssey correctly, if you know what I mean. So is getting that feeling important to you?
Oh, it's critical. It was really critical. And it's funny you mentioned Flashback, because that was a game that really helped inspire Abe, right? Like, I loved Flashback. It was one of the few games that I'd finished to the end, personally. Yeah. And I think part of it is having the original people involved. So we had people that were employed at Oddworld that were working on this game, as contractors, as animators, as things like that. You had Will at Jaw. Will was the top of the fan community. I mean, Will was our biggest fan, and then we eventually hired him, And so he was like, anyone had any questions at Jaw, go to Will. Yeah. Is this Abe? Go to Will. Yeah. And Will would call me, over the years, and we'd have hours discussions on Skype, and he just asked me questions that the fan community was doing. He just wanted to know more and more and more, and if he wanted to know, I'd sit there and tell him, So that was present in-house the whole time. But there was also, leading into it, they had helped us get the Odd Box out. They had redone Stranger's Wrath HD, Stranger Vita. Those products really helped them. There was already a lot of familiarizing with Oddworld, even though all of those people hadn't been on a previous, the original titles. That helped a lot. The other thing that helped a lot was we archived all the 3D assets from the original game. Okay. So that was all built in Alias. And if you remember, Toy Story released in '95. We started building in '94. So the first motion picture of CG hadn't even been out yet, right? So we were trying to build at what at the time would be, closely considered to feature quality, high resolution Alias, NURBS models. And we had all that archived, all the environments, all the characters, the animation. We had all that, but we couldn't use any of it in the game. We had to rebuild it all. But just having that template, like they're building the mosaic lines, they were able to take those original geometries and be like, okay, there it is. Now I'm redoing it. I'm redoing the texture maps. But having that perfect template, all that art direction was kind of pre-done from the first game, and then they could look at those 3D assets. And even though they redid everything, it's really a skin. It's like having those original models, having those original skins, having those textures really enabled it to be like, wow, this looks the same. I mean, when they first started showing me levels, I was like, oh, great, I'm glad those models worked out for you. And they're like, dude, we had to rebuild them all. But yeah, they did help, so it didn't take us long. You weren't there art directing every pipe like you were in the beginning. Yeah. No, Abe's eyes lids aren't right.
Exactly.
That was there. That helped tremendously. And then I myself spent 4 months of the last year in the UK with the team, night and day, making sure that in helping them to really make sure that this is what it needed to be. And what we felt was, it's not an HD. This is a complete remake, but we were seeing that people were still buying the game on PSN, still buying the game on Steam. It's a very low price point. They're still buying it, and they're going, wow, it's dated in terms of the pixels and the resolution and stuff, but they're saying that the design holds up. So we looked at that, and we said, which Flashback didn't, we said, why when we look at a movie like The Time Machine, one of my favorite movies, when they remake it, why do they rewrite the whole damn script? Why do they change everything? Yeah. Why don't they keep the script and rebake it with 21st century technology? I would go see that movie in a heartbeat, right? All those old 70s sci-fi films, please don't fucking rewrite them. Just give us that redone with all the new bells and whistles of modern technology. We decided we were going to do that on Abe. And I think that's an unintuitive decision, meaning people think they need to change everything and make it different. And we were saying, well, this isn't a sequel, this is the original. Let's stay true. Let's keep the script. Let's keep the script. Let's keep the template of the design. And then whatever the lessons we learned, you know, we had a bad save feature in the beginning. We had difficulties that a lot of people, you know, were like, I loved the game, it was too hard for me. Yeah. And then we had other people going, don't change the hardness of that game, man. That's what, you know. And so we're like, okay, we need to address that. And we're posting screenshots, and people are like, that's not exactly, like, where's this and where's that? And we're like, wow, the fan base really wants that original game, but obviously they already have it, so they want something more, but they're talking like they want that original game. So we said, okay, so we're going to stick to the script, we're going to stick to the template, and then we're going to just load it full of whatever we can, whatever our budget can handle. We're going to redo it with a different integrity, and we're going to make those environments come to life, and we're going to add a lot more voices. We actually got the community involved. And so a lot of the Mudokons that you're hearing, that's actually fans.
Awesome.
You know, and some of them are like, you know, television stars and things like that, rock stars and stuff. And they're like, yeah, and they're like going, we'd love to do it for you. And I'm like, no way. I mean, I got to write all these guys letters because it's just so generous, you know. But that was the passion of the fan base, and we're like, okay, then we really got to come through because we're independent, right? And we're self-financed. And if we blow it, I think we blow our future. Yeah. And so we really have to treat the audience with respect, right? And that means we got to deliver on the product. We got to exceed expectations. And people aren't expecting a totally different design. They're expecting that original redone better. And that's what I think we've done. You know, we spent a lot of time on it. I'm tired as hell. You know, the guys at Jaw are like exhausted. Yeah. They did great. They're doing great. And you played it.
Have indeed.
You got your hands on.
So, managed to play the PS4 version. The Vita version is coming along. I hear well.
Well, the Vita version and the PS3 version, we haven't had the time to really put our resources on. They're all trying to get this game done to make sure we make July 22nd US, July 23rd UK. And that's our limited resources, right? I mean, you can count them on 2 hands almost. So we're not able to work on every SKU simultaneously. But immediately when we're done, we'll be going in and focusing on the Vita, focusing on the PS3. There's still some questions there on Unity. You know, with PS3, we know we got a lot of work to do. We don't know exactly how much yet, so we can't commit to dates on them yet. But we're going into them immediately. And the PC version is basically there, you know, because it really preceded. That's what we were largely developing on before we got the Unity on PS4. And Unity's been great. I have nothing but compliments to Unity. I'm amazed at how responsive they've been. We've asked them, you know, look, we're trying to do some more dynamic things in the animation system. Can you maybe change this? Can you maybe change that? And they're like, oh yeah, well, you know what? That's better for us. We'll do it. And we're like, holy shit, they did it. And same thing with lighting. You know, we want more dynamic lighting with all these things happening. And that meant, you know, baking some things differently. We'd make the suggestions, and they'd recognize it's like, you really have the impression working with Unity that they always want to be better. And that's like, wow. You know, it's not like it'll be our way and you'll just deal with it. It's more like we're listening, we're giving you responses, and we hope you're happy with it. And we're like, we're thrilled, we're amazed, you know, of the time and attention you're actually putting into your own software to help developers make better games. And you've been really responsive to us. We're really grateful. But when it gets to those other SKUs, you know, we're still waiting for the Wii U, Unity compatibility, and the Xbox One as well. So we're not able to be on Xbox One right away, but we are now targeting, you know, we'll be there by the end of the year. So that's what we're saying. It's like Wii U, Unity, Wii U, Xbox One. We can't give you a date yet, but absolutely we got to be done by the end of the year. I'm not saying it's the end of the year release, but that's, you know, our cutoff point.
Sure.
And so that said, we don't have dates on the rest of the SKUs, okay, but we want to be on them all.
Is there anything planned that is different in the Vita version from any of the other versions, or is it just going to be a straight port?
Well, you know, we look at each controller scheme uniquely, and we want to make sure it's the best playing on each device. But like I said, because we haven't gotten there yet fully, we're still like, we don't know all the different bells and whistles. It's going to be hard for us to really do that. It's going to be hard enough for us to really maximize the controls for this game to run well on the different devices that have different controllers. And that's kind of a big problem for us, you know, that we have to solve, right? It's not an insurmountable thing, but it's a challenge. And beyond that, I'm not sure we'll have the resources to like add special stuff. That's part of why we chose cross-buy. That's part of why we chose cloud save. Is we want to make it accessible to people. We want people to always feel, this is our new model, is we always want you to feel that you're getting more value than you're paying for. We want to have great product at great price.
Okay.
And digital distribution is enabling us to do that. We couldn't do that at retail in the same way. And so we still, there's still a number of unknowns, but we know that this is, once we cross this hill, then we got to go over that hill, and then we got to go over that hill. And, so far so good.
So do you envisage New and Tasty coming to iOS, Android?
Eventually. The big problem there is not that, I think it would run on Android. I mean, we're watching Stranger's Wrath. Stranger's Wrath's coming out on mobile very shortly.
Yeah.
And I got to say, the GPU companies are all asking if they can demonstrate it at their shows.
Awesome.
That's how great a job Square One has done in Vancouver. We had to redesign all the controls. Now, Stranger's Wrath plays well with 2 thumbs. I never thought that would happen. These are the guys, the last game they did was they ported Brian Fargo's Bard's Tale to mobile.
Oh, right. Yep.
And now this is like their step up. They did a great job with that, right? But this is like, then they came after us. Brian Fargo contacted me and said, look, there's these guys, they do great work. They want to talk to you. They want to bring one of your games over to mobile. The big problem with mobile is not the performance, it's the price point. And so you can't really release a product on iOS or Android for $5.99, which is where it has to be, and that's a high price point, and then simultaneously be selling it where we need to sell it at $29.99. And so that's what's going to hold off on the mobile versions. But eventually, when we're back down in price point, when it's been out there and it makes sense, then we'll go over to mobile with these games, because we think people actually do want. I think there's a smaller segment, but there's enough of the people. For instance, Bard's Tale has sold more on mobile than it sold at retail.
Okay.
Right? And it's kind of like Stranger has sold more on digital than he sold at retail. And so we know it's there, but the price point, it's not fair if we start selling that way.
Yeah.
And I think people are going to feel shortchanged, and we don't want to do that.
Okay. So obviously, Abe's Odyssey is getting this incredible sort of makeover. You've done stuff with Stranger's Wrath, which after the way that Stranger's Wrath was originally released and how all that went down. Obviously, those two seem very near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
How about Exodus, Munch's Odyssey? Are you thinking about doing anything with those in the future?
Well, let's say Exodus. If we have the success we're hoping for, Exodus is the obvious. The audience has already told us, has already voted that if you do a good job on that, you better do a good job on that. If you do a good job on that, we want Exodus. We want you to do the same treatment to Exodus. Okay. And so we're like, okay, well, we'd kind of be dumb not to, And so with success, we go into Exodus. With more success, we go into new IP. Munch was like one of my biggest heartbreaks as an experience. I think it aged me, 10 years. But I learned a lot as a designer. I'll just reflect on this for a second. I learned a lot as a designer because I was overly ambitious. I was requesting things that we didn't have the resources to do. I was still in games. I was still sort of learning, really. And I overshot a lot of things. I made a lot of mistakes. And what that did was ultimately Munch was supposed to be Jekyll and Hyde. Munch was supposed to be this little cute guy, and if you slapped him around and got him upset, the steroid testing that he had done to him in the labs would turn him into this like hulking, giant crazy thing that would just beat the hell out of people. And that was part of the whole original concept. And then we wound up, we had a lot of struggles with the PS2 in the beginning, and we had limited resources, and it was getting very frustrating. It's just because you have to borrow money against what you're going to predict the title costs. Yeah. And if you can't predict what the title costs, you're in trouble. Because every dime you're going back for that says, oh, we need more money, it's coming out of your flesh. It's coming out of your hide. And so it was going through a rough transition to PS2, then to the Xbox. And ultimately, it wasn't the vision that I had for it. And the vision that I had for it needed to be more focused and more disciplined in honing it down. And that wasn't me at the time. I was more like, no, we can do this. We got to do this. And paranoid. No, if we don't do this, we'll get killed. We'll get slaughtered. Releasing the same week as Final Fantasy VII for Abe was a big wake-up call of like, wow, they stole a lot of our thunder. You know, I think we could have sold a lot more units of Abe. He did great. You know, he was a good hit, but we could have sold a lot more. He wasn't as big a hit as Final Fantasy, and so you know, those are all lessons, right? You're like, damn. So Munch, I'm not looking at Munch right now as like an ambitious target to go after for new stuff. But he is you know, sort of a loved part of the Oddworld universe, and it all goes to, with more success, then we can readdress and fix conceptual design problems of the past and get there. But really, my heart and passion right now is I want to do new content, but new content is expensive. So that's why we've been taking this very small steps.
So talking about new content finally. Obviously, there have been multiple games set in the Oddworld universe that have been kind of announced, or at least talked about, and then never
talked about.
Day.
Yeah, and that's why I'm careful now.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah.
So, the next kind of title, are you thinking more that it will be something based around a character you've already created, or is it a new area of Oddworld?
Well, the title I'd like to do is a new area. The title I'd like to do is Fangus. The Brutal Ballad of Fangus Clot. You know, we started it and we didn't get to finish it, and I'd like to readdress it with today's technology. I've been designing a lot of it over the past year. It doesn't mean I have the budget to start it. It doesn't mean production starting. It means I'd love to do it. I feel it'd be very powerful, and that would be great, but it's expensive. You know, I can't imagine getting there for under $6, $7, $8 million, and that's what it takes if you want to deliver really quality, you know, character-rich worlds, fidelity of animation, you know, big epic kind of stuff. It's gonna, I mean, look, we're looking around at screens that have $100 million, $200 million products on them. And I'm saying, like, a lot of money is $7, $8 million, you know, but that's what it's going to take to make new Oddworld product. And I think that that's what the audience expects from us, meaning I think we can make, look, this is how I felt, you know, we spent $15 million on Stranger. At the same time, someone else spent $50 million on Godfather. What was a better game, you know? And so I believe that what we can make is for that amount of money in our own vacuum, alone, you know, just hammering away at it, I think we can do something that looks like a lot more money, but we still need at least that much money to flesh out those new innovations, flesh out those new characters, and of course I want them to be different. Each character that we created had its own innovations and differences, you know. Abe had game speak and sneaking and things that, you know, where we were really trying to build the emotional connection to characters. Munch carried that over, but he had now more, instead of rescuing Medakins, he could use animals as weapons. He didn't get the second half of his dimension, like I said. Stranger had live ammo. He wasn't quite what he appeared to be. Live ammo meant every piece of ammo was AI. That was a whole, you know, wow, that was hard. First to third camera solutions that we came up with that I'm still not seeing, you know, out there. Those things are all expensive. But when it comes to new characters for Oddworld, I want them to have that type of uniqueness in their own way, which means a lot of experimentation, a lot of time. You know?